But that's difficult to do because there's no black and white call, right? So you may be doing cardiac arrest that is because of, XYZ area and you need something else. So that's why it's difficult to just grab what you need out of your vehicle. So that's why, like the bag that you did, this other monster, this is because I work alone, right? So the vehicles, the paramedics who work alone only carry this one. So it's both of these bags in one package.
What do you think about that? I mean, that seems like a nightmare. Do you have to take everything out to get the things to the bottom?
It's heavy. That's the first problem. The second problem, I'm glad this was not an iPad because I would have destroyed it. The second problem is, so I'm on a call, and just like you said, it becomes a bit of a garage sale. I have to, right?
This one is wrong.
This is the one that I work with, but it's the exact same bag that all the response paramedics use, everybody that works alone, so the supervisors and the emergency response guys, so they all work on a Tahoe, right? So they carry, like, think they're the guys and girls that work on the TTC. We have paramedics during rush hour. Might not even feel like it, but when the train stops at rush hour, oftentimes we're the ones that get started again because we have to go in there and get the patient off the train. So we have paramedics that are stationed in the TTC during rush hour to speed that up so that the trains can keep going. Sorry, I got a paramedic who just broke one of our Tahoes, so I'm trying to get them a replacement one. So it becomes a bit of a, like, I have to open the entire thing. Like I said, stuff should be standardized. So I should know what's in the yellow kit. I should know what's in the blue kit. I should know what's up here, here, and here. But I do. But if you come in and work on my truck one day, and you're like, I don't like having dopamine here because I want it readily available, blah blah blah, and I put it in the top pouch. I like to go hiking and climbing and these kinds of things. I don't like having weight up here. I like to have weight lower down, so that's why it's designed to be down here. But some people, out of personal preference, will move it. Right? So if you want to talk, totally sidetrack from this. So this is a hack. So as we go, or as I go, I find more, I think. So you saw somebody took a Sharpie, right, to write the expiry date. It's the exact same expiry date that was laser etched into the packaging, but it's a lot easier if you want to pass it around. It's a lot easier to read what the Sharpie is than what was hatched on the bag. So that would be one of the, people would put tape or Sharpie it in. Hey AJ, this is AJ. He's one of our superintendents who teach the Advanced Life Support course.
I'm sorry, I forgot to send you down people.
I know.
I was busy doing scheduling. Is the Tahoe have stuff from stores, or did you forget to go to stores?
It has stuff from stores, a lot of it.
Do you have the keys? Because before that upstairs, they have offered to download it.
I dropped keys earlier. Somebody picked them up for me. And can you do me a favor? Can you take that EPCR that's there and switch it out with the EPCR that's in the Tahoe behind the stretcher? And bring me the EPCR from the Tahoe? Would be lovely. Thank you, AJ. So you recognize, like, this kit, exact same as the one that's in there. I also have a red kit that fits in this bag, but this is truly a training bag. This is truly a real active bag. So my red kit is in a safe upstairs. When the bag's not being used, it's safe. And then you have sort of these code blue, right? You've on TV, like, code blue, right? So this is the, sort of some of the cardiac arrest medication. You okay? Some of the cardiac arrest medication. So that's part of what I hate, though, is that despite the fact that it's, there's not that much. If you do a hot call, it tends to, everything ends up being open, and you start looking for stuff. Like right now, I'm seeing my tourniquet is missing. Somebody moved it. Oh no, it's down here. Right. So just what I did here Like, oh, I can't find my tourniquet, meanwhile, this guy's bleeding to death, right? And I need to take this out of the packaging and use it on him. One thing, and you'll see this in, like, if you spent any length of time in the hospital, what do we produce?
Garbage.
A ton of it. Ton of it. Like, it's garbage galore in medicine. It's kind of sickening. Everything's disposable, right? We used to reuse this, which is a BVM, a bag valve mask, so that balloon that you use to ventilate patients with. We used to reuse this. We would wash it in this beautiful green solution, right? And then the beautiful green solution is cancer causing. So, so we stopped using it, but it's disposable. In here, this is not disposable. This and this. That's it. Everything else is one-time use. Yep.
Really?
These are one-time use.
What? Sterilized?
Yeah, no, these are
Really?
one-time use.
What? That's
Yeah.
Why?
insane.
Yeah.
But why?
And so interesting. So here I'll be mean to the environment. Yeah, please.
Why are they not sterilized?
So here, same thing. Because you need an autoclave, you need to do it properly, the volume that you have, the number of times that it
So
would
it's
get
better
used.
to throw them out?
Throw them out. I know, it drives me nuts too. This is broke, well, this is the thing. This would probably get used, I've used this once last year,
Okay.
right? So it doesn't get thrown out a whole heck of a lot, but it gets thrown out, right? So this is prepackaged. This one's broken, so I'll break the packaging further. This is also one-time use. And it's metal, right? So it's one-time use. It's for, like I said, going into someone's lungs, right? So I can do it on the mannequin, put it in the mouth, push the tongue one way, open the mouth a little bit, see the glottic opening, and put the tube into the lungs. And then after the call, this goes into the garbage. This gets cleaned, right? Thank you, AJ. You didn't make it. But we generate a ton of garbage. So AJ is also a paramedic. What do you hate about the bags? Because I think that was your question, right? Essentially.
Or whatever. I
Or
think.
whatever,
It's like,
yeah.
what do you hate?
These are design students.
Are you just showing the response car ones, or do you have?
I've got both. I've got the green ones too.
Okay, so that bag is the one that's the worst.
Mhm.
So if we could replace something, it would be that. All the bags should be in a backpack style, in my opinion. Not something that's that long that you have to have like one shoulder to carry it around. It's extremely heavy, especially if you have an oxygen tank in it. And all of the bags, in my opinion, should be compartmentalized. So if I open up the flap of the bag, I shouldn't see this mess, but I should see pockets with an individual package inside. And I can grab like the blue package and know that this is all my airway stuff for an adult. And I can grab a red package and know that this is all my airway stuff for a ped. And I can, grab from packages rather than whatever that mess is.
Now, within this, some hacks were talked about, or some personal preferences. I don't like my.
Yeah, I talked about like the dopamines here versus here, or like the tourniquets like packed down here, or.
Well, I don't like that
people.
you can't get into anything unless you open it fully, right? So if there was like pockets more where you could access from, like when you go on a trip and it's like, oh, I need this, but I know I packed it at the very bottom. So there's a zipper at the bottom and you can reach in and grab your new underwear, right? Like, you need something like that.
Flip it upside down. New underwear.
Inside out.
Well, you talked about too that you're all sometimes in tight spaces, so how do you deal with something like this in a tight space?
Pop it between things.
Yeah, you
And
just.
you reach in, it's all good.
You know,
You can
I've-
find things, it's not exactly sharp.
I've dragged this underneath a subway train, like sort of behind me. I've dragged it with me. You know, I don't know why. So I got there. I'm like, I can't do anything anyway. Why did I bring 30 pounds worth of gear? But
And if you were designing an actual backpack, I would like it, you know, molded to the back where there's an actual lumbar insert here, okay? Something that's more rigid on the sides so that it doesn't collapse in on itself.
Yeah,
There's
this,
something
like,
that you like.
picture trying to put this back together.
What I like about this bag, the handles that are on the sides, because it's easy for me to get in and out of the vehicle because I grab it by the handle, pull it out, and then flip it on.
Do you use a phone?
When you
What do you do?
mentioned
I'm sure lighting conditions aren't always great.
We use for
How do
cold
you,
Do you need to
How
use
do you always
anything
see?
else? Like, I guess,
Yeah.
Well, we
right?
have,
So like, you can't just grab the
vision.
keypad
It's
and
not on these vice versa.
You're a joker.
No, we have like flashlights and stuff that
Oh,
we
that
wear.
are.
There's some people. do
Some
that.
people wear the flashlights. Sometimes I have a flashlight on my belt, or sometimes I shoot.
Can we have a list of all the items and the size?
If you go on the equipment standards, you have a list of the items. That's really your best bet for the items that we carry.
Does it say what goes in what bag?
Nope,
So it's just a list?
no, it's just a list, and right now, there is a standard in Toronto for the green bags and the oxygen bag that's on the floor. This other bag that's there, that's what our primary care paramedics carry. So the green one's advanced life support, this one on response vehicles, so paramedics who work there alone, whether they're primary or advanced, and this is the primary care paramedic. So is there a standard? Right now, because of that one station where there's logistics technician that set up everything, they've developed a standard for this bag and for the green bags. There's nothing in policies and procedure about this bag. There's a way that it should be made, but it's not a standard. There's no policy and procedure about it.
Do you think you can have some break for us?
Do it?
Like we can take some breaks?
No, no.
What?
I don't know what I'm gonna do about the crew that just called me and destroyed the Tahoe, so. Cause I'm trying to figure out where I'm gonna get them equipment, but no.
What items do you use most?
That,
This?
Defibrillator, it's a defibrillator also, right?
it's defibrillator monitor,
Okay.
yeah.
So it's common to find the same set of bags in every station?
Yes, so again, the advanced life support vehicle,
Yeah.
the basic life support vehicle, they'll all have one or the other, right? And the response vehicle, the Tahoes, the SUVs will all have this one.
So the other thing is, so it's not standard and you're not allowed to do it, okay? But because I don't like this bag and everybody doesn't like this bag, okay? What we end up doing is like creating a system called like a light airway bag, and you put like the BVM and a couple of PAs and the stuff that you know you're gonna need here from this just to save somebody's life, and you shove it in the green bag and you take that with you and you just call it ALS light. And then if you end up getting into a call that you weren't expecting to go sideways, you send somebody to go get your big green bag, but at least you have what you need with you at that moment in
Here's
time.
here's
Because
another
it's one
hack,
bag.
right?
Right? But that happens because of how bad the bags are, right? It wouldn't happen if we had a system that, you know, was wearable, light, you know, and you're actually able to get around. In other services, I've seen modular components that can be added onto the backpacks. So that way you could say, because I know I'm going into an adult call, I'm not taking in the pediatric section of the backpack, and they just unclick it, right?
So-
And then bring the rest of it with them.
This is the same thing in two different formats, right? So this was a bit of a clamshell, that has the equipment in it, and then the green bag. We carry this airway roll that was really designed for hospital use, right? But it's the exact same equipment, right? The exact same that is in,
Like
in,
airway tubes?
yeah, so it's the same that I had pulled out earlier, right? And
And then all the different sizes.
all the different sizes of the
And do you
tubes.
like it? Accessible? Functional?
It's accessible, it's functional, it's hard to clean, right? It's heavy for no reason. It's hard to bring it back to the way it should be, to repackage it properly. Like when you have to leave a call quickly to bring it back to this, right? It never ends up in your car like this. It's supposed to make a square,
And the Velcro's supposed to stick.
but it's also full of blood.
Which it never does, because it just degrades really quickly, it doesn't last long enough, the Velcro. Like a snapping system or a clip system would work a lot better than a Velcro system to keep something like that closed if you had to use it. Did you bring the PESP manuals or did you read that in the headquarters?
I'm going back to headquarters tomorrow, I'll get you some.
Thank you.
Why,
Text message me, cause I'm 41 and I forget shit, okay?
why is it that you have multiples of
Thank you,
every-
AJ.
of everything within the bag as opposed to just replenishing as you use it from the animals?
We don't.
Oh, okay. 'Cause
So it might
seems like
seem,
you do a lot.
it might
Yeah,
seem that
seems
way.
like it.
So, like in this bag, so the tubes, did you have a question or did you have something to add?
No, I just wanted to say, because it's my pet peeve. Paramedics we have a standard, and paramedics have their way, and they change the system to meet their way, right? Which means they like things in one area, not in another area. So then the next crew that comes on, when they're checking, can't find what they want in the area they expect it to be in, and they add more, right? And somehow, when you actually go to clean out the bags, if you actually took the time to clean out the bags, they're double stuffed with everything that should actually be in them, right? Because nobody knows where anything's really supposed to be, and
Yeah, so
very
the,
stupid stuff.
what you saw in this bag, and it seemed like there was a lot of the same thing, like everything that was prepackaged. So that's at the top of that bag, it's tubes that go down your throat, right? So I have 2 of each size, right? So if I were to put a tube down his throat, it would be a number 8 tube. If I were to go down your throat, it would probably number 6.5 or 7. And if I would go down into an infant or a neonate, it would be a 0 or a 1, right? So that's why there's a lot of them. And each tube, you have 2 of each. So that's to go down the throat. But I also have tubes to go from your nose all the way to your lungs. I don't know why we carry both still. It's in the equipment standards. The ministry says we need to carry both. I think we could only have the nose ones because it's almost the same tube, except the nose one has a little trigger on it to help me get into the lungs. And of course, there won't be any in this training bag. There it is. So this is what a nose endotracheal tube looks like. And this is what a regular endotracheal tube looks like, right? They're the exact same, right? Except for this little thing here, right? And this little thing does this, right? So if I lube this up just right and I measured it properly, I can go into your nose, and because I know the glottic opening or your vocal cords are interior to your esophagus, while I go down, I hear your breath, and when I hear a breath, I can trigger to go into the esophagus and push it further, and that's the only difference between the 2 tubes. But because of ministry, we need to carry both the one that can do this and the one that doesn't. Right, so we have to have both.
So I don't know if you remember from last year, when the students do their work, they did what's called a customer journey. And tried
I
to,
remember that. Yeah.
tried to map through all the steps. Has anyone ever come here and asked to do that with all your equipment?
Not that I'm aware of.
Why don't you?
Not that I'm aware of. Right, so you talk about garbage, it has to be disposal, but this is called a bougie. Right, so I would use this to, if I have difficulty looking in someone's airway, I could shove this in their airway and sort of feel my way into the airway and then slide the tube on top. But then I've used it once, this goes in the garbage. Right?
And do you have a garbage bag?
No, I don't.
There are no garbage bags.
There are no garbage bags.
How
So-
do you?
But we create a ton of garbage. And that's a pet peeve, for the guys that work on the helicopter. Why do you think?
It's cramped in there, you can have it close to the doorway.
if there's a piece of garbage on the floor of the helicopter and they open the door, where do you think that piece of garbage is going?
The blades.
Oh, no, into the-
into the
Cockpit.
cockpit.
And then
And in your face would be, bad,
the blades,
but either in the blades or in the engine intake,
dangerous.
right? And then you die, right? So garbage is kind of pockets, right? I'll flip my gloves inside out and find a garbage can. But the worst, and that's something that I try to teach with our paramedics as they come through our advanced life support. Let's say your loved one has died, right? Let's say my mom died at home, right? And so I'm just cleaning out her home and getting it ready for sale, right? So I'm reorganizing the sofas and whatever and making it look pretty because my mom's passed and now I need to take care of the estate, right? And then I move the couch, and underneath the couch I find this. It's been 2 weeks since her funeral. Right? I just went right back to the moment my mom died, right? Because of a silly piece of garbage. And that's one thing that I really emphasize with the medics is like, clean up after yourself. Because it might be the cap off of one of your medications, it might be this, but you're re-victimizing somebody who just went through, a significant trauma. And okay, mom died, horrible, but let's say it's somebody who had back pain and just needed help, right? It was horrible for them. So to find that piece of garbage 2 or 3 weeks later might trigger them, right? So it's really like we generate so much garbage and there's just no good way to take care of it. I've seen paramedics, sorry?
Why don't you have garbage bags? I mean, you're creating so much anyways, I realize it's another piece of plastic, but it seems like it's.
Yeah,
there's
so
many different
you'll
pieces.
oftentimes you'll use garbage like this, I'll use it and I'll shove stuff in it, or I'll use my gloves as garbage bags, right? And I'll carry it to where I can find a garbage pail. Some paramedics I know on the helicopter, anyone of you a climber here? Anybody climb? Right, like a puff bag, right? So they have a little climber bag that you put your hand in to puff, right? They'll have that on their belt to put garbage, right? Especially the folks that work on the helicopter. I know at least 2 guys that use that. They have a little climbing bag and they put their garbage and then at the end of the day they empty it. But there's no real good solution for it, to be honest with you. It just isn't.
Is there a reason why the bags were never designed with like wheels incorporated? Is there enough?
There are some bags on the market that have wheels. This backpack, I know one guy in Toronto that, those foldable grocery bags or carts or whatever, right? He has one of those that he ties this to and he just like wheels his bag into calls. Works well for him. It wouldn't work for me. But yes, there are some in the market that are just like luggage, like has the little wheels and the little handle that pops out, right?
So is there a certain amount of augmentation that you guys are allowed to do, like the puff bag and the trolley?
Yes and no, right? The problem with his trolley is he doesn't secure it in the back of the vehicle, right? So if he has a collision and damage occurs, that's a problem, right? It's kind of like, I'm allowed to go through a red light, only if it's safe to do so. So if I went through a red light and I get hit, it wasn't safe to do so, right? So he made a decision to carry this added piece, right? So there is some leeway, right? But you have to be careful about those pieces, right?
Do you have any examples of hacks gone wrong? Because they have to do something out of what's usual?
Well, very simply, like AJ said, like sometimes people move something and then I can't find it. So then I just get a new one. That can get expensive, right? Or I'm on a call and now I can't find piece of equipment A or B and somebody had hacked it to put it in another bag because they wanted to make their life simpler. They just complicated mine, right? It's the easy one, I think.
Can you
Yeah.
talk about what the different colors bags mean?
Nothing.
So like the red kit doesn't mean anything.
Oh, in this
like
bag?
inside the bags.
Yeah, so this bag is the only one that really has a little bit of color differentiation. but it really doesn't mean much. The blue one is code blue, right? So cardiac arrest type drugs. But then the other one, I think we have yellow and what was it? Yeah, orange. They don't mean much, to be honest with you. There's no color coding to these. Unlike, there is, in hospital, they use, of course that won't have what I do. They use, like it looks like a cart that you would have at your garage, right? Your mechanics. So in the cart, especially for pediatric responses in hospitals, they'll have a cart that's color coded to use this, right? So what this is I can put this next to a patient, a pediatric patient, and let's say he's yay tall. I know that everything that I'm going to use is in this gray zone, and it's the drugs are calculated for me, but the trays in the hospital that's in this little garage type thing, like a little gray thing, and you know that everything that's here is there for the patient, right? We don't have this as part of this. And you can look it up, like the response cards or whatever in the hospital, they're color coded, and for pediatrics they're color coded based on this length Broslo tape. Broslo is the company, they have a term for it, it's a length-based diagnosing system, I forget, but anyway.
Do you have a map of these bags? Like, I'm a new trainee, I learn by just watching and figuring it out by looking at the bag?
Yep.
Or there's no, like...
No. So during orientation, they'll be presented with the bags. They'll be paired up with an experienced paramedic for the first close to 200 hours of their training. While they're in college, they have to do 450 hours minimum also on the bags. But no, there's no map or guidebook to it.
Excuse me,
I said last year, the bags are a big opportunity.
where is your gloves and do you want to speak?
Where are the gloves? In my pocket.
Let me see that.
Sorry? Can you see my gloves? That's a good question. Wow, put me on the spot.
And also your shoes.
You can see they stink. I'm not taking them off. I've got my N95 mask that's ready to go. And I've got garbage. But I do not have gloves.
It seems like there's a lot of
Oh,
opportunity.
I do.
For, like, infecting, like, there's a lot of, like,
Yeah.
if you're shoving this garbage in your bag, and
Yeah,
you're
so-
talking about getting sprayed with
so
blood and...
If I have something that's infected or that's likely to have an infection, so we just changed to these gloves that are a little taller than what they used to be. So they're a little longer and they're pretty thick compared to what we used to have. We used to have a pretty cheap glove that would rip. So they just changed to this one. And if I have something, let's say I've intubated someone, right? So this went into somebody's airway. Now it's garbage. So oftentimes what I'll do on the call is I'll just bring it into one of the gloves and I'll grab my other glove on top, right?
It should be tall.
And this will go in the garbage and I'm gonna use another pair of gloves and re-glove, right? Sorry?
Excuse me, it should be tall. I mean, the.
Oh, how long should it go
Yeah.
along your arm?
No,
Should it be longer or?
I don't know. Because you use someone's mouth.
Yeah, I mean this is pretty good. I mean we also have gowns that we carry on the vehicle, so I can put on a gown if I need to, or if there's a high suspicion for infection. So for example, if there's a current Ebola outbreak, we've got a protocol to respond to these incidents. There's just an N95 mask, right? So we have you have to gown, and you have to get another person to be there while you gown up and while you don and doff your PPE, so that somebody reviews how you do it, right?
Excuse me,
Do
do
you
you
have-
know its material?
Of the glove?
Yeah.
No clue. Not latex. Probably nitrile. Yeah. probably.
Do you have to carry extra clothing with you, like in case you do have?
So
something
in Toronto, our policy and procedure is that you must have a change of uniform at your station. So wherever you came into work that day is where you're supposed to have a change of clothing.
Okay.
That includes pants and shirt, not necessarily boots. So sometimes as a supervisor, you'll have to go and reissue a pair of boots to someone. They'll have to go to one of the boot stores to get a pair of boots for their shift. And boots are just, I'm 41. It's just a steel toe boot. It's just a CSA approved boot, right? Is all it is. It's got a steel shank and a steel toe, which is such a stupid idea.
It's so heavy.
It's super heavy, and I mean, I went to Turkey. I had a great time in Turkey with the paramedics over there. They do the exact same job as I do here. Same job. What do you think they wear? Like these running shoes, man, right? And they were like, "Oh, come on the ambulance with us." I'm like, "I didn't bring my boots." Boots? You don't need your boots. And then I went to the Syrian border. I went to a refugee camp, and I'm like, should I have a bulletproof vest? And they're like, bullet will kill you anyway. You don't need the bulletproof vest. But here, we're all like, oh yeah, you cannot do a call without your steel toes. When has that prevented an injury? I can tell you how many times it's caused, foot fungus. Like, these things are warm. Right? It's disgusting in the summertime to be in these boots. But even the guys that work on the helicopter and on the airplane, they never do a call in somebody's house. Never. Right? But they wear steel toe boots. Yet they fly an airplane from an airport to another airport, grab a patient, and they go to another airport, right? Why would they need steel toe boots? To me, that's annoying. That's just me.
So for your winters, it's heavier.
Oh, no, it's the same. I wear the exact same.
Same.
I wear the same.
Instead
I wear the
of
same
during
button.
summer.
So paramedics in Toronto, they have their collective agreement says you get a pair of winter boots and a pair of summer boots, but it's essentially the same boot that you'd get at the store. So they essentially get 2 pairs of boots per year, according to the collective agreement. So that's a negotiated benefit, just like my uniform is a negotiated benefit. I get 2 pairs of pants, 4 shirts a year. Well, I'm no longer in the union, but that's what the union gets. But we get dry cleaning. That's also negotiated. So if I have, I could bring my uniform just to the dry cleaners at Loblaws, and they're supposed to clean it for me and press it and everything, which is nice.
Are the shoes you have right now for summer or winter?
They're for both.
So what about slipping during winters? Or?
Yeah, so that's good. There was a group I think it's at Mount Sinai that did studies on soles and stuff. They've done some really cool stuff with that. But anyway, the specification of the boots are laid out by the Joint Health and Safety Committee at the City of Toronto. And so a paramedic just goes to the boot store and they're told, yes, you're allowed to get these boots. Right? That's so.
Why don't
Thank
let
you.
your individual bag?
She has a quick question.
I'm just watching the time.
Yeah.
So we only have half an hour left unless you have more time.
I've got lots of time because one of my truck is dead, so now I'm waiting for a Tahoe or a tow truck for that Tahoe. So I've got time. It's more you guys.
So
More
I
you
just
guys.
wanted to ask you, were you guys
The trucks? Yeah.
So I know that you have tons of questions, but maybe if you could hold them for a little bit.
You want to go see the truck?
Yeah.
Okay, so one more question because we took it away from you, and then we'll go see the truck really quick.
But you are seeing people who are just moving around the bag. Why do you have the individual bag?
Oh, my friend. So I go back to in Turkey. They've got a response unit for major disasters, for earthquake and whatever else, right? And the paramedics all have their individual bags in a storage locker. I saw this storage locker in Istanbul. It had 1,000 bags in it. It had the names of the medics on it. It was great. That is super expensive. The preventative maintenance on it, ensuring that nothing's expired and whatever, becomes a bit of a pressure point. So in Toronto, I have about 1,400 paramedics. So I would need to have 1,400 bags. You're looking at a few $1,000s worth of equipment here. The bag and the monitor, we're looking at probably close to $50,000 to $60,000 when it's fully stocked. And some equipment in there expires within a year, some expires within 6 months, some expires within 3 years. So it would be difficult to have individualized bag in a large system. It's done elsewhere, but here I think it's a pressure that we'll never get.
To like hold it straight.
If they actually did that.
Speaking,
Oh my god, wait, you bought it? Like for the bush play?
no,
Yeah.
I
Where'd
had
you
it
get-
before.
Oh my
I got it before
god.
coming to Canada. I just got it from
This is so cool.
You don't have to use the phone, but it shows you like where you are. Stitches.